If I look like I'm covered in lint and looking really tired, it's because I've been wrestling with our dryer. It'll be fixed sometime, but yeah, I really need to make this video, so we're gonna make it. I wanted to share my experience about the frequency of lessons for your students. I was really used to taking an hour lesson every week when I was a kid, and this was for both piano and flute. And I kind of walked into teaching thinking that that was just the norm, that was just the way things were. Why would you do it any other way? My first experience with having a lesson every other week was with my master's flute professor. And we did this because I wasn't actually technically a student. Like, I was accepted into the music school, but I was accepted one semester too early. So I actually couldn't even really start my program for an entire semester. But she was so kind that she essentially donated her time to teach me every other week in that one kind of limbo semester that I was in. Like I always say, it takes 2 weeks to form a habit. So if your teacher teaches you something and you have 2 weeks to form it, then they won't catch you when you're in the middle of forming it. And it's that kind of awkward phase of like, you can kind of do it, but kind of not. So that was how I got away with doing my embouchure change. I felt like I had 2 weeks to form a new habit. Granted, that new habit wasn't the most comfortable to me by the time I presented it to her, but I could do it. That kind of opened my eyes to the possibility of not doing lessons every single week. But at that point, I still was teaching students every single week. And if students missed a week, I felt like, like, oh no, we're missing a lesson. 5-6 years ago, I kind of waltzed into doing online lessons. And my first student, they offered themselves to be a guinea pig. We decided that we were just going to do lessons every other week because she was so busy with other things, lots of other extracurricular activities. Now, I wasn't going to say no to this because this was my first student. Basically, they were throwing money at me. And when you are poor and want to be a teacher and have no students, you're going to take any offer you can get. So I took it, even though I was like, man, I wish that I could teach every single week. Turns out she was very successful as a student. It gave her a lot of time to really think about the things that I taught her. She would improve like a lot. This happened consistently enough that it started to kind of change my mind as a teacher. So my mind was changed as a student from before, that like, hey, 2 weeks between each lesson is actually kind of nice. But as a teacher, it took until this student to change my mind. Sure, that means that I'm teaching 2 fewer hours per month than I would if I were to teach these students every single week. But truth be told, people are so busy that they're going to end up missing 1 to 2 weeks average anyway. I was like, let's look at the glass half full. If I am teaching more students who are every other week, that means that I can technically have more students. I can have 2 students in the same time slot, but they're just kind of alternating every week. For me, I would love to teach as many people as possible, as many people as I can without going insane. This will allow me to teach more people. I have the same amount of hours, but I get to spread it out amongst more people. I get paid the same amount hourly, so like to me, it doesn't really matter. The other nice thing about it is that it makes every single week a little bit different for me, which I love. I cannot stand doing literally the same thing every single week. That's just not my personality. It actually makes me feel more sane by having every single week be a little bit different. Not everyone's like that. I know that. But I'm just the type of person where I'm like, yo, I don't want to do the same thing every single week. So I'm trying to steer my new students towards this frequency of lessons. And then I start to get some different ones. So I start to get some people who are like, no, I want half an hour every week because I need the motivation. And I enjoy having hyper-focused lessons just for half an hour. We just talk about one topic and I can just focus on that one topic for a week. And I was like, that's really interesting. I mean, like, if they are so self-aware that they can tell me this, then why not? Let's do it. Again, very successful. People who are very self-aware about how they learn and how best they learn, really as a teacher, you should trust them. They know themselves. And if they are there explaining themselves to you, trust them. Might as well experiment with them and experience how they learn with them. You really can teach them more that way in the end. They have a better time learning. They have a better time focusing. They get more out of the lessons that way. Obviously, I do have some students that are doing the 1 hour every week. Those tend to be my more like gung-ho, almost music school style students. If they want to do it that way, Godspeed to them. I will go on this journey with them. If you are able to, you really can get more out of the lessons for the students if you go at their pace. Not only like their learning pace, but the frequency of lessons and the length of each lesson. The latest thing that's been really popular is once a month lessons. I have a good handful of students, probably I think nearly a quarter of my students are only 1 hour a month. I have been so delightfully surprised that these are some of my most successful students. Because I now have a nice handful of them, I have been able to kind of observe their personality types. These personality types are people who really like to kind of have their own space to really kind of like discover things. And most of our lessons end up becoming somewhat of a Q&A session. It usually ends up becoming like half of the lesson is a Q&A and then half of the lesson is like going over the material that we were supposed to look at that day. These people love it. They love having like a whole month to just self-study. They are go-getters. These people also tend to be kind of more like lone wolves, very independent people. They're people who really need their own space, and people who need their own space kind of feel like their space is kind of cramped if they have to see you every single week or even every other week. Basically like introverts. These are people who tend to be more advanced too. They actually already are self-studying, but they're seeing me just to kind of have a little guide, have someone to point out their blind spots and stuff like that. Quite by accident, I've started to have a specific weekday where all my once a month students kind of convene. And I'm sort of sticking with that so that the other same weekdays on the other weeks of the month can be open for other once a month students. Obviously, this isn't going to work like 100% of the time because time zones are different and people's schedules are different. So that ends up being a really fun day because I get to see all these people that I don't see for a month. With all these different frequency of lessons and lengths of lessons, it's been really fun to be able to change my teaching style constantly. It's actually radically different from person to person. Keeps me on my toes, keeps me learning. It keeps my eyes open as to like just how different and unique people can be. It kind of makes the whole world quite beautiful that way because you realize that we're this very beautiful mosaic of personalities and we all are working towards the same goal though. It's quite nice. I really like it. I thought I would share that just to encourage those of you teachers out there who are kind of wondering about how to navigate the types of students that we have today. I do kind of feel like the frequency of lessons and the length of lessons has changed quite radically from when I was taking lessons regularly. It kind of feels like a whole new generation of how to take music lessons. I'm dealing with it, and not only am I dealing with it, I'm loving it as a teacher. I love you all very much, and I'll see you guys next week.